Right away. So we'll call the meeting to order and go to the first order of business is the minutes of the October 10th meeting. Have a chance to look at them. Are there any suggestions, comments, questions about the minutes? Yeah,
I just wanted to change a word. The treasurer acknowledged the need to re-examine revenues. I feel a little more strongly in that. And I'd at least like to say, express the need to. She wanted that word was.
The acronyms keep catching me when I'm not looking. I appreciate it. I appreciate the translation.
There a motion to accept the minutes?
So,
Second. Peggy, all in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Minutes are accepted. Adjustments to the agenda. We do not have anything. Are there anything else? Okay. Move on. A couple short comments. And just repeating was in several of the reports we read for this meeting. I want to express kudos for the Patent Society event October 21st by the state archivist on Malabar Island. I think they will come together, first of all, when you're doing it, and not surprisingly, it was a great presentation. Very engaging, interesting, and as it turned out, even more timely than we thought. Yeah, because of the Sunday article in the Herald. Yes.
So everything was.
Yes. So, how about being
Planned it.
topical? Yeah, well,
No, we ended up not.
it's great. That's- we'd like to want to recognize to quick and appropriate actions by staff in response to the mass shooting. So people felt that it was staff felt they were supported during the time, and I think everything was appropriate.
Quick point that there will be some refresher training about live shooter or mass shooter training, so that people will be especially attuned to that after what happened with us. The topic to keep in mind is, and it's raised in some of the documents for this month, is I guess there are efforts to generate more support from businesses. And where that brings in more directly the trustees, or even pulling some of the corporators as appropriate to sort of make our case and reach out to businesses. And they're a big part of the community, and they should also be a significant part of the support structure for the library. That's it. Those are my comments. Move on to the librarian's report. Leslie?
Okay, I'm actually going to introduce Mary Kate Klosnick, our archivist and special collections librarian. One of the things I'm trying to do is to invite staff as much as I can to board meetings to talk about specific things that they do at the library. And Mary Kate has a very, very interesting job, which I love to talk with Mary Kate and learn about our archives and learn about the processes that she goes through to do various things. So I've asked her to talk to you today about sort of what happens from the time that she accepts a collection to the time that it, gets housed on our shelf. And so Mary Kate is going to tell us a little bit about that today. And she's got a PowerPoint, or she's got a presentation, and she's going to share the screen. So for those folks on Zoom. So we're gonna switch places.
Some of our documents that, thanks Leslie, that we use in the life cycle of a collection. There it is. If we were all here in person, I would just do this in the history room so you could really see. And I invite everybody to come stop by to do that.
You shared the screen.
No, not yet. So that I could walk you through, because some of these things they're a little bit abstract just in talking about, but I wanted it to be, I want everybody to be able to see it. Okay, so the life of a collection. Let me get this out of here. Okay. Basically from donation to access. So what happens when something comes to us, all the way to making it accessible for anybody to find in our card catalog and come use it. Okay, so when I say the word collection, what do I mean by that? And when I have up these kind of dictionary definitions, they're coming from the Society of American Archivists dictionary. So a few different things can be a collection, but what I'm really talking about and what we refer to as a collection here is a set of archival, or more commonly manuscript materials. And those materials are usually assembled by a person, an organization, or a repository from a variety of sources, or an artificial collection, which I won't explain that. That's basically when things are put together. But a collection is something that's put together by an organization like the library or a person, just from the day to day, and then it might get donated to a repository like ourselves. There's other definitions, but I'm not going to go into them too much today. So how does a box of a bunch of stuff, which is this on the left is a really good example of how things often get to us. A box of things cleaned out from a closet or an attic or a filing cabinet comes to us. How do they then get turned into archival boxes that are labeled, that are cataloged and accessible? So first they are donated, and that starts the process that we call appraisal. So appraisal is the process of identifying materials offered to an archive that have sufficient value to be accessioned. But what does that mean? Because something that could be super, super valuable to someone could not be valuable to a repository or to somebody else. So what does that mean? And appraisal is that process. And in library school, we do a lot of thinking about appraisal, and it's different to every institution. And when Dawn visited me last week or the week before, we talked a lot about this and how most archives will have a collecting policy, and the history room doesn't really have one. And that's a weak spot that I really want to work on. The library has a gift acceptance policy and a material selection policy. And in both of those, we have little clauses, but they're still a little bit vague, because in general, the history room collects the history of our towns, but also Maine, which is pretty broad. So in real life, when things come to me, these are the factors that I think about if I'm going to accept a collection. So in terms of archives, and this is different for library stuff too, because we also collect library materials and we purchase library materials. So this is really just archival materials. So one, is it original? Is it someone's personal collection of their diaries, their family letters? Is it a business ledger from a store on Center Street in the 19th century? Is it original? Because that really matters to us. If it's not original, what is it? Is it a photocopy of an original that could also be really valuable to us, even though it's not the actual ledger. If something's published, how rare is it? Is it something that would be really valuable in the history room and treated archivally? If it's published, do we already have it? And if so, how many, and how rare is it? Do we want to have more than one copy? There are definitely things in our collection where we have 2 copies on the shelves, and then we have 5 in the tower because it's out of print and it's really important for us to have. And then if we don't have it, does someone else in Maine have it? Someone else where our patron could go and access it? Like, does Curtis have it? Does the Maine State Library have it? Because that all factors into thinking about rare and special collections. And then also, does it pertain to our service area towns? That's one of my big priorities. And then underneath that too is it one of our towns that's not Bath, right? Like, we would love to have more materials that aren't just Bath, because that's always the first thing that comes to us. And then how big is it? Because the history room is really small. We struggle with storage. So can we take it? Is it something that we can actually put the time into, the resources into, and then the resources of storing it? If somebody came to me with something that was many, many linear feet, I wouldn't be able to take it. And then if that's the case, or even if it's not, is there a better repository that this could be offered to? So if somebody comes to me with stuff that's really interesting, but it's Brunswick, I'm not going to take that because it's not really in our collecting policy, and it would be better served to go to Pajepscott History Center. So even though there might be things that I would love to take, it would be better somewhere else because that's their collecting focus. And then if I decide through appraisal that I want to accept something, we accession it. So accessioning is the term that we use for when the materials physically and officially legally are transferred to our repository. It says at a single time, but we do accept additions to collections as well. And it's also a verb to take intellectual and physical custody of materials, and it's legal. So this is an example. I'm going to use this photo a lot in this presentation because this is currently on my desk right now. This just came in October, and it's something that I have a volunteer helping me with. And I did decide to accession this. So the very first thing I do, and you have this is a little half sheet, is I pull out my trustee archives donation checklist because there's lots of steps in this process and I don't want to forget anything. So my predecessor created this. I've tweaked it a little bit, and this just helps keep me organized. And it outlines every step of the way that I need to check off. Some of these are forms, some of them are just different steps in the process. So I keep that, and you'll see it on my other pages. So for this example, this came in, it was donated. Actually, I'll go to the next slide because it's a better one to explain. So for this particular collection that I just showed the photograph of, after I got out my donation checklist, the very first thing that I did with that donor is have her sign a deed of gift and fill that out. So the deed of gift, you have a copy of this too. This is that legal document. So this is where the donor is saying, this is what I'm coming with today. This is who I am. This is what I'm coming with. So it'll be a brief description. And this is now it's yours. They sign it, I sign it. And that legally gives it over to us in case 10 years down the line, they come back to us, their daughter comes to us and says, I want this thing back. This is our legal feet that we can stand on to say no, or whatever we choose to say. So every collection has to start with a deed of gift. And if you don't have a deed of gift, it doesn't belong to us, and we shouldn't be doing anything to the collection. We shouldn't be cataloging it. We shouldn't be putting it into boxes because it does not belong to us. This is the very first step. So in this case, the photograph on the previous slide, this is a really neat small collection of scrapbooks and bound court proceedings related to the life and career of Charles W. Morse, who funded the high school. He was kind of a tricky character. So this is really interesting because not only is it original materials compiled by his sister, but it was donated to us by Charles W. Morse's great granddaughter. So there we have a really clear, clean line of who it's coming from, who the creator is, and who's giving it to us. So that's like, it gives me the chills because usually we don't have that. Usually it's like a box of stuff. People don't know where it came from or who created it. So this is like a shining example. So we have the description of materials, we have donor information where she writes that he was her great grandfather, her great aunt, is that right? Collected these. And then we also ask them in terms of separation, which is number 4, if we choose not to take any part of it or to at one point deaccession it, what do you want us to do with it? Usually they'll say dispose of it, but in cases like this, return it to me or my heirs. So we always want to know what to do in that case. We try not to separate collections, and I'll talk a little bit about that. It's not really best practice unless, well, in certain situations, but there will be instances where things sometimes are deaccessioned, but that's not very common. So the deed of gift, that's the very first thing that happens. We also have them fill out a gift in kind form. We also call it a department gift form. And this goes to Samantha because we think of them as an archival donor. They're giving us a collection, but they're also a donor. So we want to record that. And Samantha puts them in little green light. Yep. So we do this. And this is where I also note that I will be writing them a thank you note. So Samantha knows that. So I always do this at the very same time as the deed of gift so that I don't forget it. Then I write them a thank you note. I didn't have a photo of any of my thank you notes, but I always write them a thank you note and I try and get that out as soon as I get these forms done so that I don't forget. And I like to make it personal, just how special this thing is to us and how we're going to take care of it for many years to come. Because people can be like kind of, I don't know what the right word I'm looking for is, but they'll donate their things and they don't really know how important it can be. So I like to really encourage them to thank them for donating that because they might find more and they might find something even more special. So we always write a thank you note. And then this is where I start more like internal documentation. So just going down that line after thank you note, it says AS accession record. So the way that we do our accession paperwork, once we have the legal physical paperwork, is we create an accession record in a program called Archive Space, which is a web-based software. And that's new. My predecessor, I think, had brought that on a couple of years ago. Before that, it was a Word document that's almost 900 pages long. So I still use it to search it for information, but it is not very functional. This is much better. So an accession record is really just putting the information from that deed of gift into one place. It's like a database. Super basic information. Here's where I give it kind of like a basic title of what I'm going to call it. So in this case, even though it's about Charles W. Morse, the creator was Jenny R. Morse. So we give it the appropriate title. We give it an accession number, which is where you see identifier in that red asterisk, which is always the year, the month, and then the number of collection that came in. So in this case, it was the first collection to come in October. Super basic content description, a really basic inventory and provenance, which is how did it get to us, who's been keeping it. So we do that in Archive Space, and this is what it looks like. From there, I take a step back from all of my like accessioning and cataloging, and we start to think about arrangement and description. So when we talk about arrangement and description, they're the same process, but two different parts of that process. So arrangement is the process of organizing materials with respect to their provenance, right? Like how did it get to us? Who did it belong to? And original order. So ideally it will have an original order. It doesn't always, to protect their context and to achieve physical or intellectual control over the materials. Meaning physical control is having it like this, we know where everything is. Intellectual control, meaning we know what's in here. So that's arrangement. It's thinking about, I have this box of stuff. How does it go from a cardboard box to an archives box? I think this is the one that I have a photo of. Yeah, like how do we end up with folders that are organized while keeping original context? The idea of original order being that whoever created this collection, they had their own organizational system, and we don't want to mess with that, even if it doesn't make sense to me, because it could make sense to a researcher or somebody who knows the topic or the person better than I do. So that's that idea of arrangement, is making sure that it's in good shape, it's in order, and if possible, keeping it in that original order. And of course, preservation wise, putting it in archival folders, Mylar sleeves if we need that, and boxes. And then we start to describe. So the description is a whole class in graduate school. So I'll just say that description is creating a set of data crafted to identify and represent the archival resource or components of it. And there's different levels of that, which I'll talk about in just a minute at a very basic level. But so in this example, with that Charles W. Morse collection that came in, this is where we're at right now with my volunteers. He's going through all those scrapbooks and he's taking notes of what's in the scrapbooks. What are they about? What are these bound volumes of court proceedings? Are they the same court proceeding? Are they different? So he's creating that kind of initial like descriptive metadata of what the collection is, so that we can start to think about this arrangement and about how we describe the collection when it comes time to cataloging it. So what these steps look like for us, and arrangement and description for every organization is different. Like this is someone's entire job at the state archives. For us, what that means is taking in a collection, creating that really basic inventory of what's in here, what does it cover, trying to keep it in that original order. And then once you know what's in there, deciding on that intellectual and physical arrangement. So a good example of that is, say this is the Bath Memorial Hospital collection, but there's different sized things. So everything in here is a legal size document, but there are oversized photographs. So I can keep intellectual order, meaning that I know where everything is, even though they're housed in different size boxes. So things are being stored efficiently, but intellectually, we know where everything is. And that French term, respect the fonds, that just is the original order concept, but this is how archivists refer to it. And then we want to start thinking about rehousing the collection. So most collections come in cardboard boxes that are not archival. So we want to start thinking about what boxes do we need? Do we need 4 of these? Do we need a couple oversized boxes? Which size? Because we have 4 different oversized boxes. So thinking about those physical resources. And all of this comes together to give us a basic set of metadata to start making this accessible to people so that they can find it. So the next step is to go back into archive space, take the information that we have from the accession record and from that basic inventory and make an item record or a collection record. And this is where I then go from having an accession number, which is that 2023.10.1, to a collection number, which is like an archival version of a call number, like Dewey Decimal downstairs. A collection number will look something like this highlighted column that I have. And the letters SM, PC, MC, those refer to what type of collection it is. So manuscript collection, photo collection, or small manuscript. And then the number is just the next number that we come to. So this is when I really assign them that call number that's going to help us refer to it and find it. But this still isn't cataloging. This is just like another step of the process. then I catalog. So if you have ever used Minerva to find a book or anything, this is what the back end looks like. So cataloging is a distinct language. And it's different at all sorts of institutions, but here we catalog the way we would catalog a library book because we're in the same library system in Minerva. So this is an example of a catalog record for something that I had a volunteer working on recently. So this is called the Doris Evelyn Norton Mosher collection. It's a family collection. I would say it's like a medium-sized collection. And this is what that collection record looks like. Once, you know, I've done this, it's saved, it ends up in Minerva and it looks like this. And at this point, our collection is inventoried. We know what's in it. We've put everything in their new homes, in their boxes, their folders. Their folders are labeled. Everything is clean and tidy. And then the next step, which is for most of our collections, this is the end step, is having a very basic catalog record so that people can just find us and know that we have it. But in a perfect world, we then have a finding aid, which is what I've just circled. Many collections don't need this because they're small, but a finding aid is a PDF document. This is 2 pages of one that tells you everything you need to know that's in this collection. It goes far more in depth than a catalog record to the point where it will tell you the basic contents of every folder in the collection, of every box. So if you were researching Doris Evelyn Norton Mosher, you could look at the finding aid, which again is linked to our catalog record, and you could say, I need box 1. That's the only box I need. Or I need all of the boxes. This is the order I want to start in. But ideally, this helps you find that as a researcher. This is so much work. I had a volunteer working on this one this summer, and it took him the entire summer. And again, this is someone's entire job to do too at a much larger organization. So this is the gold standard for any collection that's more than 1 box. Because if it's just a box, you know, you can just look at the box. But if it's more than that, we should really have this. But I would say something like maybe 20% of our collection has this right now. But this is like at the end of the rainbow. This is what we want. That's my presentation. That's where I end. So that's so much stuff that I just threw at you with just a couple of photos. If we were all in the history room, I would show you a good example because I have one on my desk. I have other things that have been housed. And it can be a little bit like archival theory to describe, but does anybody have any questions about that life cycle from when it shows up on my desk to when it ends up in our catalog?
When you said appraisal, you do an appraisal, do you have a dollar figure?
No, not at all.
Dollar.
No, in the library archives world, that's considered pretty unethical to, I mean, you could have it in your head. I don't, because I have no background in like antiques or anything like that. But if someone were to come to me and ask me to give them a dollar amount, that's unethical. I could never do that. And I just don't have the skill set to do that either. Yeah.
Well, I just wondered because that's a donation to the
Totally.
library. But you can't put it into dollars.
Yeah.
So I was just.
Well, that's why we consider it a gift in kind. Yeah. Just like if somebody gave us a book. Yeah.
And
Mhm.
even then, I will put like, say, they say the book is $17.99. I put that they're gifting kind of $0, and I just make you know that that was the price that they told us. We didn't give
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah. That's a good question though, because it's the same term.
Right.
Yeah.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
I've asked that question. too.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yes.
folks.
So,
I hope it wasn't too in the weeds.
no,
But we
and I
realize
never get tired of hearing
Oh.
about this.
involved the process is really good, something from. really
Yeah.
Probably best to actually becoming a permanent part of our holdings.
Definitely. That's why I keep a checklist
Yeah.
because there's so many pieces. And I really do invite anybody who's interested, stop by the history room. I'm happy to show you some of our collections and maybe just ground it a little bit more.
Or if you want to do now you're intrigued to do a shadowing. And
Yeah.
you haven't done one with Mary Kate, you know.
It was fascinating. You have to really, and to really appreciate, you have to see all the boxes that are up there.
There's a lot.
And
Yeah.
There's a lot.
And how many there are,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you folks so much.
Thank you, thanks a lot.
So one of the things I'll too say is, it's always been my dream and my vision to have a true archivist in the history room. We haven't always, and the work that Peter and Robin did was amazing, but they were not trained librarians. So a lot of this work, that's another reason why when Mary Kate said most of our collections aren't truly cataloged or, and have finding aids. This is part of the reason why, because we didn't have quite the people with the background to do that. So we're doing a lot of catch up, but but I'm thrilled by the work that everybody's doing. And what makes me excited is when people can find our materials by searching our catalog and get to those finding aids and see those collections. So that's very exciting. And the only other thing I want just to add, just from my report, just to give you a little update on a couple of things with the ARPA grant. We've been looking at, and I don't know if I put this in my monthly report, I don't think I did, but we are looking to purchase some, what we call work pods, single work pods. And we actually, this week, we had a virtual tour with a company in Boston to look at some pods that are for, single seating pods. And so we're going to be going to Portland in a couple of weeks. I've got Elizabeth and Laurel. We're going to be looking at another manufacturer of pods, and then I'll be making a decision early in December to purchase some. And then so these will be standalone single work pods to help us get more spaces. We often have people, our group study room is overbooked. We just don't have enough space. As we've talked about, we have a lot of single users using a room which really was designed for small groups because we have no space for people that need to have phone meetings or Zoom meetings. And so we're really excited about this part of the grant. So I don't have the full details yet. I'll share them next month, but it looks like we're going to be purchasing probably 2 of these pods. And along with that, we're looking to get some new software called LibCal, which has a component for reserving rooms. So patrons will be able to go to our website and reserve the spaces, including the community room, including the group study room and these pods. So that will be something that Elizabeth is working on and putting that into place. And so we're hopeful, my hope is that sometime in January, hopefully by the end of January, we'll have the pods up and available for use, because we already are seeing a huge need. And I think that need will even grow as more people know that these are available, because we're having to turn people away every day when we just don't have the space. So we're really excited. So that's the first piece of the grant that's moving forward. And then Dean has been gracious with his time and is working on setting up a couple more vendors to come in to give us to take a look and give us some proposals on improved AV for this room. We have one proposal already, so we're going to get a couple more, and then we'll be able to make some decisions and move forward with a improved AV system, which will have speakers, cameras. We won't need to use the owl. We'll have a way to record. It'll be a much easier system to manage through a single control. So more to come on that, but we're excited. So that'll be the second sort of phase of the grant. And then the third, of course, is the accessibility entrance, which I am working with the city. They're overseeing that project. And I've had a couple meetings recently with the city on that. So because they're going to be expanding the project on their end to also include, we hope, the repaving of the whole parking lot. So although we had contracted with Pine Tree, they work with Pine Tree as well. So they've taken that over, and they'll be overseeing the project, and then we'll be, I'll be involved in the part that pertains to the library, but involved in all the conversations. But with the winter coming on, nothing will happen with that, as far as getting going on the project until the spring and summer. We also have to coordinate that with Main Street Bath and Heritage Days and everything that goes on there. So Amanda McDaniel was at our last meeting too, so we made sure that we're not during that time, summer window, that we're not doing projects like that it would impact that as well. So, and then just the last thing I'll say is, if you noticed, the EV chargers, they've started that project. So there are 4 parking spaces in the lot that are, I think, blocked off right now while they're putting the chargers in. I think I'm not sure how many days it's going to take to complete just putting in the pedestals, but they won't be live yet because CMP still has to come out and do their thing, and that could take some time. So they're not going to be live quite yet, but that's, if you wondered what was going on in the parking lot, that's what's going on.
You can see them now there.
Oh, are they up? I haven't been out since this morning.
When they were live.
Oh, they're up already? Yeah, I just kind of saw poles sticking out of the ground. So yeah, they work fast. So but I don't know when they're going to be operational yet. But I'm in close contact with the city, and so Rod keeps me informed of everything. So and I'm sure they'll let us know. So for sake of time, as I told, and so I'll brag just for a second, my son is being inducted into National Honor Society tonight. So I'm a very proud mom. And I just have to leave by 6. So if the meeting is not over, I'm gonna Dean will turn off the recording and turn off the Zoom, or Samantha. So anyway, I think unless there are questions, yes.
I think I read that about the ARPA grant.
Mhm.
I think I read that the AV and something else might cost more than what's in the grant. And so there was a question about, well, why go ahead with pods or something? And I just wanted to understand that a little better.
Yeah, that's a good question. So in the proposal, we knew that they would, so we wanted to make it, the proposal, we wanted to get the grant. So we didn't just want to include we wanted to make it, what do I say, is as enticing for the selectors. So we didn't know how much over the things were going to cost before we did the grant. We still don't. And one thing I found out recently is we have a budget, but we don't have to stick to it dollar for dollar. So for example, if the pods cost 20,000 and the AV cost 35, and we budgeted 25 and 25, we could do wiggle room, as long as we still sort of stick to the furnishings bit and to the, technology bit. It doesn't have to be dollar for dollar, but I don't even know that we don't know what the cost of the entrance is going to be. So it's possible that the whole 100,000 wouldn't have covered it. So we just had to sort of make some guesses.
So then what happens? I mean, it seems like those are 2 very important areas, the accessibility and the AV.
Right.
So if they end up costing more than the grant, where does the money come
Then
from?
we'll have to go back to the board, probably capital reserve.
We do
So
have
why
a
go ahead with
donor. We do have a donor who is specifically interested in
Right.
covering some of the extra in the AV as well.
Right.
So we have some of that taken care of.
this?
Well,
That seems really important.
Right, because the board approved to go ahead with, they saw the entrance as a priority.
Okay.
So even when we did the Pine Tree study, we didn't even have the ARPA grant. We didn't know how we were going to pay for it. We didn't even have that grant. So we still don't know, because when Pine Tree gave us their cost estimate, and that was even before the city got involved and was able to pay for some of it out of their, they're paying for some of the project out of their funds. So they haven't gone out to bid yet. So we don't know what it's going to cost. I'm anticipating it's going to cost more than the 50,000 plus and the city's money for the project.
Why go ahead with pods before you know?
Because we put that into the grant. We can't say we're not going to do that when that was part of the grant. I can't say I'm not gonna do furniture. I can't say all of a sudden we're not gonna do this at all. Because that's what we put in the proposal.
And just to go further, it was specifically for upgrades for remote work. It was specifically for that.
Right.
So we can't just say, oh, well, turns out we wanted to do this instead. This is a little bit more, we're just not gonna do that piece. We do have to go forward and do the piece we said. Certainly, there's a bit of wiggle room on exactly how we do
Right,
it.
how we break out the other
But
thing is we
we-
felt we would be more successful in getting the grant if we segmented the money. If we just said we're gonna do the accessibility entrance, I don't think we would have got the grants. So, and before we didn't have any, we didn't know how we were gonna pay for the accessibility entrance. So the fact that we are working with the city and they're paying 30 grand, we've got 50, that's pretty good. So no, we probably don't have it all, but it's a lot more than we had. And so, right, again, we wanted to be aggressive and get that 100,000, and we wanted it to be an exciting project. And I don't think just the entrance would have got us that money.
I think
Oh, sorry, Rue.
Thank you. I can't quite hear all of it. I'm not sure the owl's selected as the microphone.
It is. It's just not. It's selected as the microphone.
Okay. Are you sitting right in front of the owl?
No, I'm sitting in front of the laptop. That's why you're hearing me clear.
Yeah.
Probably because I'm in front of the laptop. I can go get the mic. Somebody will have to hold it. Again, this is why I can
Okay.
get a mic and people will have to hold it in front of them. For some reason, I turned up the owl. Did you hear it better when I turned it up?
Yeah.
I can try turning out the owl up more. I don't know how loud it goes. You can hear me because I'm sitting in front of the mic on the computer.
Yes. So I don't think the owl is what's picking up your audio.
It's well at the mic. Let's see, the owl is set. Hold on.
And while you're looking, I'm going to ask my actual question,
Yeah.
which was, I understand from what I could hear, I understand that while you have to do what you put in a grant, I would share a concern that I would voice the concern that if the cost has gone up, it's not unreasonable to say we can't do all of it right now and still be within your within the rules of a grant. I would hope. So if cost goes up, do we as a body decide that we have to spend extra money that has to come from somewhere like the reserve, or we're going to trim commensurate with increased cost or something, or increased discovered cost, trim what we're doing right now? I'm not sure I'm saying that very well.
I don't know how we would do that. I think the problem is with the board the accessibility entrance was something we already started working on
Right.
even before we got the grant.
Yeah.
It's really bare bone. I don't really know. It's something that has to be addressed. We were just actually finding a creative way to pay for it, which we did. I don't really know how we can back out of the things that we are committed to, because this is,
Well, for example, could you buy one, I think you called them pods, they're kind of like carols, I think.
right.
Could you buy one and not two?
But it doesn't meet our needs.
It doesn't meet, right. Well, the thing is, it doesn't meet our
Doesn't meet
needs.
The need.
We could.
Mhm.
We could. It wouldn't be, I don't know how, it might give us $7,000 more. I still,
Could that money be then switched among the categories? I mean,
it can be, but it can
It's
be,
all part of the.
right, as long as we do those 3 projects, it can be.
Three projects, okay, but you can adjust.
But
them.
right, it can be, but I can tell you now that we will, even if I move them, even if we switch it around, we will not have enough money for the accessibility entrance. We knew that going in. When the city of Bath applied for their grant, we
Mhm.
had to commit. And the board, we talked about that at the board level. We had to commit to paying a portion of it even before we got the ARPA grant. We committed to this project some time ago, even before we got the ARPA grant. So we're committed to the project. And we will have to find the remaining funds.
That's
I
the
do,
question.
I have to say one thing, I do think for $7,000, it's not worth it. We have such a great need. I think the 7,000, that's what the pods cost, is better spent on the pod and taking 7,000 from capital reserve or finding a grantor than personally, I really want to see getting 2 pods. Now I'm thinking we won't get 3 pods, which would use the, but I really think we need 2. So I would advocate for that. That's what
Essentially, what I was going to say, I just wanted to say that taking away from, really, I think what sold the grant for us to get it was the purpose of the pods, the remote workers. We knew going into this beforehand that we needed to spend money on the ramp and all that to do the accessibility. We knew that we were going to do it regardless of getting the grant.
right.
This grant helped. The reason I would venture to say we got this grant is for the upgrades that we're going to do centered around remote working. I would feel that we'd be doing a detriment to us to back out of doing something regarding the remote working upgrades just to save a few dollars. And I understand thousands isn't a few dollars, but in the grand scheme of things, I think now is the time to move forward with that, do what we said we're going to do, and then take a bit from capital reserve. So one, why it's there, and 2, we would have had to do that anyway, even more so if we hadn't gotten the grant, and I don't think we would have gotten the grant if we weren't doing the other stuff.
Right.
A lot of that is opinion, I understand, but
We have this huge need. We are turning away
Yeah.
people all of the time because we don't have space where they can work. And I just feel really strongly that we essentially set 25,000 for furniture, and we're backing down to 2 pods, which is not going to cost that. So we have a little bit of wiggle room. But it's the other thing about, we were looking at AV improvements. We had our first proposal even before we knew about the ARPA grant. So these aren't new things. I mean, we were already sort of looking at them. So now we actually found a creative way to pay for a good portion of it, which is really exciting.
Oh,
Yeah, can I ask a question about the EV chargers?
Mhm.
So. Are they, if there's not, if it's not in use, are those only going to be for EVs?
No, so yeah, anybody can park there. So that they're not, was made sure of that with the city
That's
is,
what I thought.
yes, they're not restricted for charging only. Anybody can park there.
And I think this morning we mentioned they're not free either.
Right.
Oh, not right, so that's gonna
do they
be.
network?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're network. They're,
Yeah.
I don't know, but the city probably knows, and they may have told me,
It's
but
not on their website, I can tell you that.
okay. So yeah, they're not like at the train station. They're not free, right? So they're gonna be, you have to, pay to use them. So, and not having an electric car, I don't know what network choices there are.
There's about 50.
yeah.
Okay, but they are,
That'll be publicized.
that'll all be right.
It's actually out.
But they are pay, right?
Okay, why don't we, if that's it, why don't we just trying to keep us moving along here. Good discussion, but unless I didn't mean to cut anybody off, if there are more questions about anything that Leslie said.
I was just picturing snow globes.
No, not at all. Once we've made a selection, I'll put a picture on monthly, but they're kind of square boxes. But I just have to tell you one thing, the guides, we did a virtual, well, not virtual, we had a person in Boston, the showroom is in Boston. So he gave us a tour, like, he has and he's 6'2" and he fit very nicely in the pod. He could even almost straighten his, so it's it's bigger than a phone booth, but you sit in them,
Yeah.
but they're really nice. And in fact, they told me, I asked about soundproof because I had him go outside and then leave his laptop in there and make sure, what we could hear. He said their first model was so soundproof. They had problems because when you're devoid of sound, just does something to your brain and you start to hallucinate. No, so he was saying they had to actually back off of that and put sound back in because they were too soundproof. So, anyway, they're very cool. So yeah, you'll all get a chance to try one out, to go sit in it.
Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as listed in the agenda?
So, yes.
Michael,
Second.
Suki, all in favor? Consent agenda is accepted. We'll go down to each one. First of all, are there any questions, comments about the monthly report from the staff?
If there's too bad, we only had 40 corporators at our corporator meeting.
Yeah.
That's half, isn't
Not quite half. It was the same as last year. I think there are
92, right?
92 corporates. I think 91. Bill King just passed away. So I think there's 91 now.
Okay. The building and technology report. And unfortunately, we have Dean here, I'm sure you field any questions we have, if you have any. Okay.
it? Will the, is it likely to be in the center?
I don't think so.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that the timeline is from beginning of project, like 9 months total, but there's a lot of work that has to be done before we are even ready to sign a contract.
The staff has to go through another summer.
Yes, oh, yes,
Patrons do, yeah.
right.
Finance. I have one small suggestion, Tom, on the issue about, we talked about what, line 8 covers of the 990. And we talked about the detail, that we should say that category is contributions and grants. It's not in the report, it just talks about line 8, it doesn't say what it is.
Oh,
All right,
Just a small
yeah.
explanation, I think. Anything else about finance?
A question about the, your 2020, what is it, 24-25 budget discussion?
Yes.
I see the comment that Leslie made, which is significant about the flip of endowment versus municipal contributions. What is the cause of that flip? Is it the budget? I don't think I understand why they flipped.
The cause is that the increase, well, okay, there's a few reasons. Up until recently, the endowment has performed well enough where the 5% draw has gone up significantly. Our budget has gone up, but the amount that we ask for from the towns is not, that hasn't gone up proportionally.
Hasn't gone up commensurate.
That's
with the
right.
other- with the
That's right. And there were, when I first became director, there were 4 years where the board wanted to keep funding to the towns flat. And that was not, I will put that on the record, that wasn't my choice. I recommended that and so that's another reason. And I will send around, Rue, I'll send around, I have a funding history, which outlines exactly year to year, and you'll be able to see it really clearly.
Okay.
And I'll send that around, or I'll put that on it's actually probably already on the Google Drive, but I will make sure it's there. And you'll be able to see exactly how that shift occurred, but that's a really good question. So that's basically how that happened.
And have you gotten yet to the point of considering the increase to municipalities for 24-25? It might be, I guess you have if you've got a draft budget. How much are you taking that up roughly?
So can you say that again?
How much is the increase, or what will be the increase to municipalities requested in 24-25?
Right now, that's actually the mic's turned up all the way. Right now, we have a 5% increase.
Okay. And how much was it in 23-24?
5%.
Okay. Right. I mean, I don't have a problem I may have colleagues who disagree with me, but I don't have a problem defending a 5% increase when we are in budget hearings and we see how much the cost of fuel went up. The cost of everything goes up. You're not seeking to make up for those years when your predecessors didn't raise it and they probably should have.
Right. Well, the other thing you'll see when we get into discussions of the budget and actually looking at it, when the finance committee is ready to recommend a draft,
Right.
is that the endowment draw has decreased. So we're actually seeing a downturn for the first time in over a decade.
Right.
So that has implications, as we'll talk about.
And is there also then a reflection of some expense tweaking to accommodate?
You'll see that, yes, when all of the above.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that'll be something very soon for the finance committee has to finish its work through, and then they'll present something that the board will look at and discuss. It ultimately has to be, of course, approved by the board.
Thank you.
Any other questions about finance? Friends? By the report. Governance, the succinct report from Steve.
Succinct. No additional explanation.
Could I get credit for having attended?
It was a test to see if you read it.
She's on, she's on it.
Oh.
Policy and personnel did not meet, correct, Leah? There weren't any things, any pressing issues.
That's right, and I think we're gonna be set for some items for December, but I'll talk further with Leslie before that.
Okay. Yeah. Move on to the treasurer's report.
Okay, so let's look at what we call the cash report first. Everything is pretty straightforward. One thing I will mention is we did receive BAS contribution, is that correct? And that is reflected in the savings account. Just to refresh everybody's memory, we keep the checking at a minimum of 50,000. Anything over that sweeps to the savings. And opposite, if the checking goes below 50, it'll sweep from the savings to bring it back to a $50,000 balance. It's 50 now, right?
I know.
We do have, it's coming in by
There you
delivery right now. We have the up-to-date value of the endowment. Thank you. I feel like we're in the Senate right now. Great. All right, so get ready. As of yesterday, close of yesterday, the endowment value was $7,525,106.47, which you'll see is up just a tad from 11/1 when we last
Good.
reflected on this. So
Good.
that's great.
Yep.
Any questions regarding the cash endowment? Any of that?
What was the amount from that?
Oh,
I think it's in the income, is it?
yeah, on the P&L, 1.8,
Municipal contributions, 30, there's 30.
well, that's,
39.
no, it's actually because September, we didn't get it, that's, you have
Yeah.
September's, that's too low. If you could pull up LGL, you can. I don't remember, it was whatever amount we asked for, but I don't remember. I hate to give a number because I don't have it on top of my head. I don't.
None of the others have yet.
One other town had given, Woolwich, maybe? We've received one other town, and I can't remember. By the end of the calendar year, we will have received all of the contributions. I know we've gotten one other town, so I can't remember which one.
Okay, I know.
Maybe it was West Bath, I'm not sure.
All right, on to the P and L, pretty straightforward. Are there any questions regarding the P and L? This is for September. Any questions for the P and L for September?
Peggy?
At the finance committee meeting, we had a question about the, building and equipment M&R line that we were going to check.
Yeah, I have not had a chance to check what those are expenses are for. I mean, I guess I imagine they're just, contracts and things like that, but I'll have to look and see.
7,000, I think it jumped out at us at the.
Oh, right, whatever the, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I expect we'll probably have an answer for the next.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay,
Anything else?
well, I think if whatever the answer is, they should send it to the entire board since it is coming up in a board meeting.
Sure.
Everybody should know what's involved.
Thank you.
If no other questions, I think that's it for me. Trying to be like you.
Eileen is not here, so the development report? Yeah.
Okay, so, as of today, the annual fund is at $62,096. It's on par almost exactly with last year. That includes the open pledges that I have from board members, but. Let's see, we have a bunch of things happening. So Giving Tuesday is November 28th. So the Friends have agreed to match $1,000 in gifts for new and lapsed donors only. So that's what they do each year. It's tricky. Last year, I think we managed to actually get the full 1,000. But that was because a single donor gave $500. So this year's goal is 3,000. So 1,000 from the Friends, 1,000 to match that, and another 1,000. I'm hoping to do a display at the front desk. And have a table with some treats and maybe some board members. Rick has signed up to do 1 hour so far. Just to kind of bring attention to it. And I'm gonna have a board where people can write on a heart, similar to like Love Your Library campaign, where they can write something on a little heart and post it and do that. We've got new digital signage downstairs, which will have a all-day display. That will be for Giving Tuesday. There'll be an email that goes out to the board the day ahead of time that will give you instructions on how to share, with your friends and family and other people to encourage giving on Giving Tuesday to the library. They'll also be the email that'll go out to all of our donors and friends and everybody I have an email for. Corporators, top of the list. So that'll all go out for Giving Tuesday. Hopefully we'll get our $3,000 goal, but hopefully at least we get the $1,000 to match, so we get the full Friends gift. So then immediately after that is on November 30th, Long Reach Kitchen and Catering is going to do a night of sales to benefit the library. So we'll get 10% of their sales from 4 to 9. So usually we put out a call and make sure everybody goes out and has a meal, and it's really lovely to go out and see all the library people out in the restaurant. Leslie and I usually get a table, for staff and other board members if they want to join. So that'll be November 30th. Information will be it's already getting ready. Hannah and I are planning on getting that into the e-news and getting that out on the website and all of that. Then there's a night at the Patton, which is December 16th. That is well underway. Tickets are selling. They started selling yesterday. We are still desperately in need of food donations. Sisters is donating a couple of platters, but I've reached out to JR Maxwell's, Verano's, Kennebec Tavern, Red Envelope, That's Thai, Solo Pane. I've not heard back from any of those. So I'm really kind of counting on donations for this event for food so that we have a little money for selling food. This is an event that I did not budget for. So we did get Bissell Brothers and Bath Ale Works will both be donating beer for the event, and Kit Non-Alcoholic, which are local in Maine, will also be donating non-alcoholic beer for the event. So that's up and going. A volunteer sign-up sheet went out, and probably many of you might have gotten it in your email today. That went out for Starry Night and a night at the Patton because they're happening kind of simultaneously. So the free event will be outside, the ticketed event will be inside. Judd Cathwell is playing in the reading room, and all of the luminary bags are in my office and ready to be set up. We may have to close early that day because of the realization I had 1 hour between close the library and set up and open up the event, and most of the setup is in the children's room. So, but we might close like an hour or two early, for that, and so if anybody wants to help with that, that'd be great. We're looking for volunteers for the welcome, table for taking in, taking the money and whatnot, although I do have a staff member, I think, interested in helping with that. The alcohol is just included with your ticket, so there'll be no sales happening. I have a volunteer bartender already to just help pour, and I'll have a donation bit, so people can donate to support us through that, but there'll be no transactions, and I've got lovely gold flashy bands to wear for everybody who's 21 plus. The bartender will, ID everybody and then put these bands so we easily identify them without too much work. So all of that is happening, and the annual appeal went out. So gifts have been coming in. The 500 plus gifts were delayed until the annual report was in, and that came in like a week and a half ago, and so I immediately got those out into the mail. So gifts have been coming in, and it's been pretty steady. I expected a little bit more. It's not as fast and furious as I would like, but we are on par with last year, so I won't complain. Yeah, so I'm out all of next week. So if you get a lot of emails from me this week, it's because I'm planning everything for that week of Giving Tuesday and the Long Reach Kitchen and all of that. So I apologize if I email a lot. I think that's everything.
Like one small comment about the report, part 4B, there's a reference to the fines, and the fact that we used to get income from fines, bringing in about $7,000 a year. But I recall from looking at the documentation in connection with the discussion about dropping fines, that they actually in recent years never reached 7,000.
Yeah.
It was always significantly lower. So I'm just saying that, that was a budgeted amount. I know sometimes
Right.
the actuals.
Yeah,
significantly
what was
less.
the actual this past, it was like 5,000 something,
Yeah.
and it's dropped every year.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know what, yeah.
So it's less of, in terms of budgetary impact one way or the other, we're not starting from a reference point.
Right. And luckily this first year will be covered.
Yeah,
So
right.
at the time,
It's actually better, because
Right.
we wouldn't have probably gotten 7,000.
We wouldn't, we would not have.
Anything else about development? Peggy?
The business, I think you mentioned it was 4 businesses down, business supporters. You may have already sent us this, but did you send us a list? Okay. You have a list
Yeah,
of
I had
all
sent
the-
all of the board members a list of all of our donors. I had a
Okay.
couple of tabs that had like stewarded, and the businesses, and I think you and Allison were the only two
Right, I
actually
have.
went in and added some stuff. I think you might have added yourself to a business.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
once I
Um,
did it. Okay.
I'm in control from
Did you
here.
make it? No, I thought,
Yeah.
But, so we have the whole list, because I was wondering, okay, I'll look at that, I was
Yeah.
wondering, whether it would be good for us to know, because then even when we're in a business, if they're a donor or whatever, we
Right.
can acknowledge them.
Yeah.
Um,
I have it on my to-do list also in the next couple of weeks, is to do a follow-up business appeal to our fall businesses, like Fast Savings is not given this year, and they are normally one of our first gifts, and
Right.
one of our largest gifts, so if anybody's in Fast Savings and knows Barbara Tuttle, pop in, say hi, maybe encourage that donation to come in, but, I will put out a list basically of the ones that I've sent.
oh, that would be good,
And
because,
because I stagger them, we have businesses that didn't give until spring, and so I don't solicit them until the spring. So I'll send out like the list of who I have solicited this
Yeah.
fall, including some potentials that I tried to get in. And then who is given and who hasn't, so then, we
because
can
I
go
was
from
thinking
there.
that's something that
Yeah,
we
yeah,
might be able to help.
Certainly
with,
reinforce
in the
if we
sense
know
that-
who it has, it's very reinforcing if we,
No.
thank you so much.
Right,
in
right.
for a visit.
Yeah.
Right.
Or if you know someone well enough and you see that they haven't,
Yeah.
then you could say, oh, by the way. So I
Yeah.
think the more
Follow-up
we're
would be really
aware of the
helpful.
business.
That's one of the areas I often fail in the especially with businesses, is I see our donors a lot because they come into the library, but I don't see our business donors or potential business donors, and it's hard for me to get out of the office and kind
Right.
of step out and try to, face to face, which can be really helpful, so if board members want to help with that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll email that, probably tomorrow.
I would suggest they get a hold of Bass Savings very quickly, because if it gets to the end of the year, you won't see it this year.
Oh,
So,
Yeah, they usually do their stuff in October. At least they have their trustee meetings, I think, to,
I would,
We should,
Yeah, I reached out to Barbara, but she might have been on vacation, but.
it would be, at this point, be Leslie or me reaching out.
If you want, I mean, it might help. Do you know Barbara?
No,
very well?
I
You
know
know
she-
where
I
she
mean, I'd be happy to.
Well, through
You
you.
want, I know probably her. info.
yeah.
Go for it.
Well, I mean, I've got to go drop off. I'm in there. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll ask you because I've got to go drop off something in there, you know.
A loop.
Yeah.
I would say, if you
Yeah.
can, since Samantha's made, your contact ready, if you can follow up. see
Can
what
you
they-
send me what you sent?
Yeah, I'll do
So
that.
I can.
Yeah.
Okay. Curious,
I hope that's good.
Perfect.
and that will work.
Before we move on to the town area sports, because I just saw a reference in one of the parts of the monthly report from the staff was a reference to the space committee meet.
Yes,
Okay,
they had their first meeting a week or so ago. And so they are, I set some parameters for the group. So Elizabeth, I'm not involved with the space committee. I've stepped back from that. Elizabeth met with the group. They have formed their charter. They understand their mission and they're going to be, they sort of have a deadline of wrapping up their piece by March. So the goal of the space committee is not to figure out the how, but just to figure out the what is needed.
Okay.
So that's the art, because they're not the architects. They
Right.
just need to identify, they know better than anybody what the needs are. So that's what they're doing, is identifying the needs of the various spaces, and then they'll be putting it together in a report for us to take the
Okay.
next steps.
Okay.
So yeah, they had their first meeting.
great. Town area school activities. Reps. There.
Connie and I were at a meeting over a month ago. So you mentioned a lot of, they had the back to school. night.
School.
Yeah, we did that. We haven't started budgeting for next year. I'm a little nervous about the 5% increase, to be honest, because it's not out just to the board, it's also out to the town. Anyway. So.
Anybody else?
Actually, this is going back to the librarian's report. Leslie, I just thought it was great to see your picture with Allison with the pumpkin. Because I think
And
that
Allison's.
Yes, yes. But I think that kind of visibility is going to be really important going forward with capital campaign and the, strategic planning. So it's good to see you out, in a visible way with photographs. And so, thank you.
That reminds me, Leo, when you said about photos, I noticed some of the photos around the Halloween with the kids and everything. And I was thinking photos can be a good thing to send to local press. Maybe you do some of that, but
Yeah, I can't speak for what Hannah does. She handles.
Yeah,
all
Hannah
that.
handles our market, all of our.
Times Record.
So, yeah, I mean, and we also have to be careful about photos that we use of kids.
Right, no,
So, yeah, I mean, usually we have a story that goes along with it. But one thing we did was we we had some Halloween photos that I took and we posted on our Facebook, posting of, things like that when we had the character parade we did. So, yeah, so we do, but we usually have but again, we have to be careful with photos and making sure.
sometimes the press, even just the photo without a whole story, I think people look at photos. So if it's a, good photo, catchy photo, we just might think about.
Yeah, I don't I don't know what the press, what their policies are about accepting a photo without a story. I don't know. What will, and Hannah may know more about what because she has all of her press contacts. I'm not sure what they accept or how they, what they want with, but But I agree with you that photos tell a story.
Yeah.
They absolutely,
Better
and
than
often
words.
much better than words
Better
do,
than words,
for
yeah.
sure.
Often.
Absolutely.
Any old business? Out with the old. Okay, new business, the 22-23 financial review and the IRS 990 for 22-23. So, that,
Getting you.
Anthony?
He's like, look at, you're looking everywhere else and I'm looking at you.
So I think this is sort of similar to the P and L. It's fairly straightforward. First, I'll just ask, are there any questions? Does anything stand out to anybody? Let's first talk about the financial review, which is titled patent-free 2023 patent-free library financial statement, if you're in the drive.
Can I ask a question? I thought it was an audit, not a review, if we don't audit.
So they're very similar to each other. An audit is
I know it's more expensive.
it's much more in-depth and more expensive, and in fact, Bill doesn't suggest that we need that. It would be overkill, as he said, and not worth the money. So a review satisfies what we need to do, as far as getting an opinion, from the
And
accountant.
it satisfies the municipalities at
Yeah.
the same time, so,
Yeah.
okay, that's.
Yeah,
that's-
I think
so
we've been doing reviews
that's the
for
part-
at least a few years, and it seems to be.
That's the part that I was.
Efficient.
concerned with.
Yeah.
Municipalities.
And I'll tell you, this is all fairly in depth. And in fact, one thing that, which is just neat to notice that we put in here, I'm trying to find exactly where it is. But regarding the endowment, let's see, on page 10, I believe it is, we even have it segmented out on where it came from, what it's for,
Right,
all that,
yeah.
which not
Yeah.
everybody has it as cleanly as
Right.
this. So that's just a nice thing to
Yeah,
say.
Anthony's right. If you look at past years, when we used to do full audits, the actual review, the information provided is not that much different. So I will say for when we've applied for grants, in fact, I recently shared our financial reviews with some banking institutions as we're just exploring options for funding the HVAC. They're all completely satisfied with
Okay,
that.
okay,
And
that
in
was
fact,
my
in press,
only.
I will say.
They're impressed, and not only that, everybody knows Bill Brewer, so when I say Bill does it, when I was talking Bass Savings, they're like, oh, Bill, yeah, he's great. So everybody local knows Bill Brewer
Okay.
and trusts him, so yeah,
There's a few names that sound you here, but yeah, that's.
yeah.
Okay, okay.
No, I think that was the only question I was whether how it would affect, eligibility for competing for certain money, but if
Yeah.
the financial review is, okay, that's, so because the audit would be considerably more expensive.
Right, I knew that, yeah.
Yeah.
I asked, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions about that or the 990? Pretty straightforward. We went through that. On the 990, I think was there a question that we had?
Well, I had a question about why the line 8 with the grants and the contribution line was lower for the reporting year than it was the previous year. Even though we had, we know our contributions had actually increased, but it may be that the finance committee was thought that perhaps some grants were either lower or didn't appear in the time period covered.
And I think Leslie, you probably haven't had.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance, but I will find out what those numbers represent. My feeling is it's probably additional grants that we received, one-time grants that we got one year and didn't get the next, but we can certainly,
We'll discuss that in the next, and we'll make sure the board is aware. Of
yeah,
Okay.
we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We just,
I just thought,
The beneficial interest of the current assets, and it references note C, and I looked at note C, and it talks about an additional trust
Mhm.
that we become beneficiaries of.
Yeah, that is the Frank Given Trust. So that's what that reference, and the reason it's on there is because we are technically an owner of that. That is considered our asset. The portion of which that we get is considered our asset, so it's listed on there as an asset because it is ours. It's not just like, say you had a couple too many cocktails last night and decided you were gonna give us a large donation, and then there it is. But this is something that is actually, or maybe tonight, who knows? And that is something that is ours. It's not a one-time thing. It's not something that usually happens, and we're hoping it'll happen. It is ours. like she was talking with, the archives and all that, it's legally been set aside as ours.
Set amount per year written.
So it's a set amount, it's a set percentage per year, and I'm trying to recall. the exact-
65%.
I was 65%. So it's not an amount, but it's a percentage of, what's in there. Yeah.
Thank you.
And one thing I'll say, I don't know if we have to have a motion, but there needs to be something in the minutes just saying that the board has had the opportunity to review the financial statements and the 990. So that has to be, so for Jack, that has to be officially just in the minutes. As part of our,
Give you the opportunity.
right, that the board is right, had the,
Do you acknowledge?
Yes, we do.
so somehow the board has reviewed, it could just be in the minutes. We need to, as you know, being a nonprofit, we
Any
have to say
objection
that.
to such a statement appearing in the minutes? We've had a chance to do it.
And I will say, if anything, if you're reading this, over your nightly drink tonight, and come up with something you have a question about, feel free to contact me or.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Can I ask something on the financial review?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
It is under liabilities and assets under Exhibit A, and there's $27,000 listed as deferred revenue for 2023, and that is not there for 2022. So I was just curious what that was referring to.
But
That's-
the grant, right?
That's two things. So deferred revenue means it's revenue that we're actually carrying over into this fiscal year. 7,000 is money we got last fiscal year from the Davenport Trust to cover the fine free. And 20,000 is an unrestricted grant that we determined we were going to carry over for use for operating in this. So that's why, so Bill had said we should set it up that way as deferred. So that means it's revenue we got in 22-23 that's being carried over to 23-24. So in next year's financial review, that will not show up unless we're deferring other revenue.
That will be counted as income for this year.
That will
but
be-
not counted as last year, as to keep it separate so that that wasn't included in any surplus and then allocated as such.
Right.
It's deferred because we knew it was grants received that were to be used in a different budget year. And so we got those, deferred them, and then the money flipped over. And
Gotcha.
it's really just so that the books look right, so that we don't
Right.
think we have a $70,000
Right,
surplus, when in fact we don't, because that money is already allocated.
It's already there.
right. So it
Yeah,
doesn't look like we're
taken out.
double dipping. We're
Yeah,
right.
right.
We're not using it right.
Perfect.
So that 7,000 is actually what the development committee was referring to on the 7,000.
The fine
Yeah.
free, yeah.
Yeah, right.
It was.
Yeah, I knew that was new.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? I would just note that the next meeting would be December 12th. That's my calculations correct.
Yeah.
Any final comments, questions, discussion about it? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
I would.
Anybody who wants to,